This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the After Stangs Show. I'm Billy Embody, Dean Ralsky here. We are at Shug's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza. We have a ton to talk about as SMU, once again, takes a big-name opponent to the woodshed in Ford Stadium, 42-16. They beat up Florida State in SMU's first-ever ACC contest. But first, guys, we got to remind you guys, we are presented by our friends at Mosquito Shield. Andrew Galloway and his wife, Caroline, run this family business. They took care of my backyard and our entire yard just this week, and it was so easy. I can't tell you how quick in and out they were to get our entire backyard mosquito-free. Our next spray will be coming up pretty soon, and the reason why you guys should do that is because it's that perfect time of year where it's starting to cool down, get a little bit nicer out in your backyard. You want to watch the college football games that are maybe late at night if SMU plays that next weekend game at Louisville at 11 a.m. Central Time. Call Mosquito Shield. Go to their website, moshield.com. Use code PONYUP to get their best pricing through the end of the mosquito season. And trust me, they will take care of you. They're SMU owned and operated, which is always a good thing. And we like to help our own, right? So appreciate them supporting the On the Pony Express podcast. And they have been quite the hit since coming on the podcast. And look, SMU is quite the hit tonight. Yeah. This new atmosphere inside Ford Stadium is just absolutely electric. The ACC network was on campus Friday. Of course, Saturday morning, it was bumping on the boulevard. And it was one of those things that we talk about SMU of old. Brett Lashley likes to say that was the old SMU. Well, the old SMU would have made a big stage of this and flopped. Well, the new SMU, this new era that we're in the ACC, is taking off like something out of a storybook. And tonight was another chapter in that storybook, a dominant showing in front of a crazy crowd. Campus was electric. It was just that perfect day, including the weather.
Yeah, it's one of those moments where you feel like you have to pinch yourself to make sure you're living in reality. It was a dream start to the day with, like you said, ACC Network on campus. The hype for the game was building. And then the team delivered a 5-star performance tonight. We'll dive deep into it, but a 42-16 win over Florida State. I don't think I would have believed anybody if they told me that at the start of the season.
And once again, they go out and they find a way to start fast. They go right down the field, score a touchdown. You get Brashard Smith involved early, 13-yard touchdown to open the scoring. And once again, with Kevin Jennings at the helm, they just looked under control from the start. They looked very prepared and composed. And look, it's not perfect. This is a game that I'm sure the coaches have a bunch of things on both sides of the ball to clean up. But at the end of the day, you get that fast start, and it's something that SMU has been able to harness and turn into, 2 huge wins back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, and as you said, they didn't play perfect today. They made multiple mistakes on special teams. They had more opportunities to get turnovers that they didn't. Ball was on the ground a few times for Florida State. SMU never recovered it. But SMU still beat a Power 4 opponent, and they didn't play perfect. And that's something that, for me at least, I'm still getting used to saying is SMU didn't have a 10 out of 10 performance, but the scoreline looks like they did. And so it was just a dominant display on both sides of the ball.
And you look at the balance that you and I were talking about before we went on. 42 first down, or excuse me, that's 42 points, but it felt like 42 first downs, 23 first downs for SMU. They were able to get 200 yards passing, over 200 yards from Kevin Jennings. It's a career high for him at 254. Then they had 35 carries overall, which is right about that mark that we're looking at each week that Rhett Lashley kind of needs to hit, right around that 40 mark. And Brashard Smith totals over, what did he finish with? Almost
129 yards rushing. That doesn't include his 50 yards receiving. Yeah. So at 170 all-purpose yards for Brashard Smith tonight.
And David Hale, we had him on before the season and talk about all the lawsuits, funny enough. But he mentioned Brashard Smith as kind of a dark horse Heisman Trophy candidate this week. If SMU keeps playing the way they are, and he keeps nipping around that 200 yards all purpose. I mean, who knows where that goes from there? You know, Heisman's really hard for non-quarterbacks to win these days, but he is so tough. He did all of that missing a touchdown drive that SMU had, or maybe that was the drive that they got the field goal block, but they got down there again. No, it was a touchdown drive because Roger, pushed it across, I think.
Yeah.
But, he played through a lot of pain, I'm sure, and went in the locker room for a bit and was still able to have a huge game again.
Yeah, and that is something that SMU will have to look into in the future, is how are they going to, manage him moving forward, because he got banged up early on in this game, went into the locker room, came back, and was still super efficient. As you said, probably not even at 100%. And so, but even when he wasn't on the field, SMU still found ways to be productive. Something we hadn't really seen consistently throughout this season was, okay, who can SMU turn to next? Well, it was Roderick Daniels, who ran for almost 4 yards a carry, which, I mean, you can't expect much more out of a receiver turn running back. And Kevin Jennings looked great passing the football, had a career high in passing yards and passing touchdowns, I believe. And so it was, again, just a complete performance and something SMU can build off of moving forward into a big game against Louisville next week.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of time to talk about that game. And I go back to, this team was not in shambles by any means after what is now a very good loss, so to speak, to BYU. They were a team that did not finish that game in terms of finishing drives, having opportunities to make a play to get off the field and avoid giving up a game-winning touchdown for BYU. The last 2 weeks, they've finished. They have really stepped up. And you look at the second half in both SMU's win over TCU and the win over Florida State. SMU, started fast against TCU, 17-0. Then it was 17-14. They rolled from there. And then you get into this game where SMU outscored TCU 28-7 in the second half. And that was also a situation where Florida State was getting the ball back after getting that safety, special teams miscued, no doubt about it. And Ahmad Walker comes up with an interception, and R.J. Maryland breaks a touchdown record for tight ends.
And going off of this new SMU motto, there were opportunities for SMU to allow Florida State back into this game, but they just did not. They kept their foot on Florida State's neck and just did not allow Florida State any momentum throughout this game.
And the way you do that is forcing DJ Uyunglele to beat you by himself. And they held Lawrence Toafili to 15 carries, 67 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, not bad for him. But when you rush for 75 total yards, not good for Florida State. They were also 3 of 12 on third downs. And DJ Uyunglele eventually gets pulled after Kobe Wilson's 82-yard interception return for a touchdown. Rhett Lashley said it was probably the greatest defensive play he's ever seen.
Yep.
I'm kind of right there. I'd have to go back through my cobwebs that have emerged now over a decade and try to find something else. But what a defining play for this defense, the effort that they've shown, quite frankly, throughout the entire season has been unbelievable. And it's shown in that play from Kobe Wilson.
It was summed up perfectly. Kobe Wilson comes across the field to make the play, and then looks like, as Coach Lashley said in the press conference, he might get tackled or fumbled 3 or 4 different times throughout the play. But one of the better parts that I loved about that play is you had around four SMU teammates right there with him that sprinted the length of the field, going back to that point about the effort that this defense has showed throughout the season. And it didn't stop even when they were up multiple scores against TCU or Florida State today. The effort is consistent throughout the 60 minutes.
And what I think is so impressive about this team is they've settled in so well to their identity.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
When we looked at the BYU game, we knew the defense had an identity. This offense has grabbed an identity with Kevin Jennings, and it's one that is a workman-like mentality. It isn't flash. And I mean, the flashiest thing about this offense, believe me, is Brashard Smith. His ability to catch the ball was shown tonight as well, which was really impressive. But, they just don't let things faze them. And I know, you could nitpick things that happen throughout the game, which I mean, that's what fans do. But when you look at the overall performance, 467 total yards, when SMU basically shut it down for the last, I think, 5 minutes of that game in a sense. Really impressive overall.
And SMU was up 42-16, I believe, with about 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And so you could say they slowed it down for almost a quarter of this game. And this offense, they found their identity against TCU, and they built on it this week against Florida State, because you saw the run game and you saw the short to medium passing game. But then you saw SMU with some trickery. Again, a flea flicker. You saw Kevin Jennings certainly take more shots than I think you've seen him take all year in this game alone. And a lot of those attempts were successful. And there also were maybe some pass interference calls that SMU didn't get, but that's besides the point. So this SMU offense is growing and improving, I think, faster than I would have ever imagined after that BYU game.
Yeah, and it takes a lot for a coach to make the decision he did with Kevin, and we talked a lot about that. So I'm not going to continue to keep harping on that.
Right.
But for Rhett, I think we're seeing again the maturation. There were moments there in that game when I felt like, okay, they just a touch too pass happy. I think that one of them was when Florida State closed it down to, I think it was maybe 28. 16, I think that would be, and people were kind of like, all right, is this the time where Florida State does turn it on? They had just gone right down the field, and then SMU, I believe, goes 3 and out. And I think that was the moment they were aided by the face mask. I could be wrong on my notes, but that is, you have to take advantage sometimes of the cards you're dealt, and SMU was able to do that tonight. And I just think, again, this offense doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. It's not the flash that we've seen in the past from SMU. It's grinded out. It's rushed for 213 yards and played just a style that forces an opponent to quit. And I quite honestly think we finally saw that at a certain point from the Florida State defense.
Yeah, Florida State had been in really competitive games every game this year. They just had been on the losing side. This game for majority was not competitive, and this SMU offense and defense combined really made it not competitive. But again, SMU didn't play a perfect game, but Florida State gave SMU, opportunities. The tipped up interception to Ahmad Walker and that face mask, and SMU punished Florida State to the fullest extent when those gifts were given to SMU. And I think that's another difference between past SMUs and this one. They take full advantage. I feel like I kept typing in the word capitalize. SMU capitalizes on this. They capitalize on that. And that's how you get to 42 points.
This defense, I tell you what, they hit and they take the body as many times as they can. DJ took some shots. Guys like Kobe Wilson, Elijah Roberts. Elijah, I think at one point you looked on the defensive side of things, and he had 3 quarterback hurries, I believe.
Ended with 6.
I just saw that. I just said that. He is turning up the heat and looking like a potential day 1, day 2 NFL draft pick. Isaiah Wacobia, he went out with a cramp for a little bit, led the team in tackles with 7. Kobe Wilson, we can't ever talk about how important he's been to this defense and what he's brought. And by the way, Jonathan McGill, that diving interception was just insane.
Wow, it was a great play, and it summed up his performance. He also made some great tackles, and he did against TCU as well. So he is just really shining. And, yeah, that was one of those jaw-dropping plays for me when he came across the receiver, jumped in front, and made the diving interception. It was an incredible play.
All right, we're going to wrap up kind of the initial recap here and get to Q&A with our ontheponyexpress.com subscribers. Subscribe for 50% off using code PONYUP. It ends soon. Celebrating the SMU win over FSU. We've got that discount code for you, PONYUP, at ontheponyexpress.com for annual subscriptions. So jump on board with us. But I just want to say that I've been around SMU a long time now, and this atmosphere from Friday afternoon, family weekend, Saturday, Boulevard, the weather, the game day experience, the in-stadium, crowd. I mean, it's just something that SMU can continue to build on. It's just going to be a month now before homecoming rolls around, and we'll see the Ford Stadium crowd again. But you talk about a fan base that has waited a long time for this, and the entire university has really lived up to its end of the bargain when it came to making this move to a power conference and not just making it and saying, cool, got it. All right, that's great. everybody got their wish. They're living up to the investment that the ACC expected from them, and they're putting together now a season where this league can be proud of them. It's very early. Like Brett Lashley said, they only have one ACC win.
Yep.
They're 4-1 on the year now, but they're doing what they're supposed to do when you look at a team that won a conference championship last year as well.
It was a special night. It's been a special weekend for SMU. And, Coach Lashley was asked, I think every player was asked, these players and coaches and the community has waited 12 months, 13 months for this game specifically. They marked it on their calendar a year ago, and it finally came, and SMU made the most of this opportunity in this special night. And so it's an exciting time to be a Mustang. And, yeah, they've just got to go keep their head down and keep working, though. Can't celebrate this one for too long.
No, you can't. All right, let's get to a couple of questions here from our ontheponyexpress.com subscribers. How can we fix our kicking woes, blocks, and punt return? This is the same team that kicks 50-yard field goals and returns kicks 4 scores. Look, one, SMU special teams, it is improved this year. I mean, the explosive plays that they made, the kicking operation for Colin Rogers to lead the country in field goals, at least going into this week. You don't do that without having a generally strong situation. Yeah. They've been much better on kick coverage unit, I'll add. I mean, I think FSU, we can pull it up. They started their average, unless you have it.
Well, and they got a Florida State kick return inside the 10-yard line, which was pretty impressive.
So I mean, it's kind of a different. The average starting drive of Florida State, they had 13.
Their own 27.
I mean, when you think about some of the situations, that games lead themselves to, that's pretty good. I mean, you're basically starting at a complete touchback or, a little bit more than that, and you factor in punts and different things. But, for SMU, in terms of fixing it, I mean, there's just not much you can do, personnel-wise. They'll have to look at the film, see why the field goal was blocked. I mean, that hasn't happened, and that was routine. That was that's just 30-yard field goal that was blocked?
Yeah, right around there.
So they've got to figure that out, clean that up. Will Benton, I don't know what's going on, 2 snaps over the head of Isaac Pearson this season in 5 games. They're not punting that much, so you got to figure that out and fix that. And that's on Will probably more than anything, and Coach Horning and Coach Cooper and figuring out that. But overall, I mean, like the question stated, this is the same team that's kicking 50-yard field goals left and right and returning kicks for scores. So, all right, Abe Zotner, how are we not ranked on Monday?
It's going to be hard to not rank the SMU Mustangs, because not only did they beat their rivals and then the reigning ACC champs, regardless of how good this Florida State team is, they dominated both games, really in all 3 phases. Again, I know SMU had some mishaps on special teams tonight, but they also had some great plays on special teams. And so I think they were receiving votes. I tried and did the math earlier this week. I think SMU was sitting at around the 38th best team in the country, the way you split up the votes. So it would be a big jump, but they've put up big numbers on the scoreboard the last couple of weeks. And maybe it's a ranked matchup between Louisville, who I don't think will fall all the way out of the rankings after losing by 1 possession on the road in South Bend against Notre Dame. But it'll be a fun game regardless. We'll have to see if they get that ESPN slot at 11 a.m. or whether they'll be on ESPN2.
Should know pretty soon here. I would imagine it'll come out. They usually figure that stuff out pretty quickly. But SMU does face Louisville next week, 11 a.m. Central. When you look at Louisville, we've been asked, does SMU have a shot? And I'm going to say yes, because SMU's defense is playing really well. Louisville finally went up against a really good defense in Notre Dame, which ranks in the top 15. I think SMU's going to have a shot. If they play like they did tonight, they're going to have a shot.
Yeah, and SMU's been at home for the last month, which has been great. But going back to last year, when they went into hostile environments, when you think of especially that Oklahoma game, they came out of the gates and played well. They were competitive in that game. So I don't think it's necessarily a fact of, well, they've been at home for a month and now they have to go onto the road. I think going on the road and being the underdog, which they have been for a lot of this season, motivates this team. Maybe more, maybe not as much as being at home. Certainly motivates this team. And Coach Lashley has now proven over the last few weeks that this team will be ready to play when that ball is kicked off at 11 a.m.
And one thing I'll say that we can share with you guys as well that came in our reporter group text from the SMU Stats and Information Department is that SMU is 19-1 when Rhett Lashley's team scores at least 30 points. They've won 16 straight in that. So I don't know where that other one is. Somebody could probably fill me in on that. But to do what they've done when they hit that 30-point mark and you hit 30 points, you hit 35 or so carries, you're probably in good shape with Rhett Lashley. H-Town Pony asks, what is our take on the defensive performance versus an underperforming FSU offense?
I think they exposed this underperforming FSU offense, which means they did a good job. We talked about the QB hurries. Only 1 sack on the day, but 11 QB hurries in a game where they only passed it, I believe, around 34 times. So you're getting in there, putting pressure on the quarterback once out of every 3 times. That's a great performance. And this SMU run defense has just been great throughout the entire season. They haven't given up that huge play. And from time to time, it's just when the opponent runs the ball, you just expect them to get a gain of around 2, and it's no harm, no foul.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they did their job. You know, there were moments that FSU hit some well-designed plays.
Yeah.
And there were moments where SMU was also able to force them into adverse situations. And, you know, SMU also did a good job of kind of getting to them a little bit in the sense that they drew some penalties too. You know, we were talking about the one on Big 63 on FSU where he has little Ahmad Walker, you know, there. And Ahmad is just like being a pest and all of a sudden gets a hold. And it's very apparent, you know, we could see it from the press box right there and boom, flag comes out. Doing those type of things are not lucky or negating a big run. Those are, like Kobe Wilson talked about after the game, by design. You play harder than the other guy. You play mentally sound. You play mentally tough. And then you can create those type of opportunities for yourself.
And so it was a complete performance and a consistent performance, but a little bit, you know, the secondary hasn't been super consistent throughout the year, but that goes both ways because sometimes they give up big plays, but they're also creating big plays and they're redeeming themselves with the interceptions and with the turnovers. So it looks like that's kind of what you're going to get from the secondary this year.
And they tackle really well. Like I know Jalen Davis Robinson had especially a rough first quarter, first quarter and a half, but and rightfully people are wondering, what is he doing out there? He's one of the highest graded guys in terms of tackling and run defense and all of those things. So those are things that it's the total package. You can't have a defense that, you know, just has lockdown guys but are soft and get run on. I mean, we've seen that from SMU too. So it's a balance, and they continue to rotate guys and try to figure it out. Remember, FSU does have some good-looking wide receivers physically. Jalen Brown, a guy I covered, Hakeem Williams, a couple others out there, but SMU was able to get it done. All right, Show Pony asks, anything about the health of Richard and Jennings? They both look rough, hurt on the final drive. I assume he's talking about Kevin. Kevin seemed fine. He was waving on the field, pretty happy-go-lucky. Richard, they're going to have to – that's why you have treatment, do all those things. Rhett did say he didn't have an update on Tank Booker. He was smiling after the game. I did see him in a boot. So he got kind of rolled up on, I think, and exited. And other than that, Romello Brinson has been battling bursitis. And so they held him out, which, hey, got the win. It's a pretty good deal. LJ was still in concussion protocol. And that's about it, I think, on all the injuries. So any thoughts on why Rhett prefers to keep starters in blowouts for so long? Something, Preston Stone versus Navy. Preston Stone was in there, I think, midway through the second quarter. So, I mean, that's one thing. But I think Rhett was the offensive coordinator. I probably have the years wrong, but was he the offensive coordinator when Tulsa blew the big lead in the fourth quarter to SMU? So
it might have been right. I think so.
Yeah, or he knows about it, or he's been on the other side of it. So,
and your first game in the ACC, you can never be too sure. Right? So you just gotta make sure.
Yep. Let's see what else, guys. A lot of people just on the board. Subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. Jump on our message board. Chat with everyone. Everybody's out here talking about what Dickerson said. Eric Dickerson in the locker room. Quote, "This is what we used to do when I played here. You guys made us proud tonight. You guys look like a serious football team." He said, "We used to whoop that ass." Thank you guys. We've waited 30 years to look like this. And I believe it was Kevin or Rhett that, said that he was emotional. He's crying. He said he was crying after the game because of this moment. So pretty cool. Are we back? It sure seems like it so far. Recruits are absolutely raving about it. If you want recruits reaction, we've got that as well. The after party, I think we're going to hit Milo's. Dean, I don't know if you're allowed in there, but that's where I'm going for a quick one before I head on home and get in bed. It's a long day out there.
Real quick on recruiting, Coach Lashley said after the game, this was the first time they had ever sold out their recruiting allotment of tickets for recruits. And so, a lot of talented players were here, and they got to see a special performance. So can only be a good sign for SMU.
Whiskey Pony, longtime subscriber and very, very good at playing both sides of things. And he's had so many beers, he's very happy. But he's got a question. If Burchard keeps us up through ACC play, is he a borderline day 2 pick? Also, will we finally start dialing more stuff up for RJ? He's a cheat code. We don't use him enough. I don't get it. Burchard?
For Burchard, I think you have to. At some point, the numbers tell enough of the story to where, especially now, again, SMU's playing in this power conference that if he's going to keep putting up these types of numbers, scouts can't look away from it. And not that they would want to. I don't see any reason why he can't play in the NFL. But, yeah, I think his draft stock is skyrocketing from where it was at the beginning of the season. I
think Rhett compared him to Isaiah Pacheco, so that'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know if that gets you on day 2 being a running back, but you'll have a – when you could catch the ball like he did tonight and you could run as tough as he does, you're going to play as long as running backs can these days.
Yeah.
All right, dialing more stuff up for RJ. He's a cheat code and we don't use him enough. I don't get it. Completely agree.
Yep.
But this dates back to Chad Morris in this offense and tight ends. You have the big games and they become stars, and then you have games where teams take them away. I agree with dialing things up. They did, and so much of it's matchups. When they get a linebacker on RJ, they go after it. But a lot of teams don't put a linebacker on him
because they know not to.
Yeah.
And it's almost maybe similar to what we saw with Elijah Roberts earlier in the season. The first couple teams made a point of stopping Elijah Roberts. Other teams have tried to stop the defensive line as a whole, and now Elijah Roberts is dominating the defense. So it just depends on the matchups.
All right, great night, great team atmosphere. Team played well, except for some stall outs. Face mask penalty, 2 drop punts on punt returns. What's going on with Mr. Butterfingers? Well, Mr. Butterfingers ran a punt back for a touchdown last week and has generally been pretty good. But I will say this, and it's not an excuse as much as it is reality. FSU's punters, 1, really good, but 2, I will say that the rugby style and kind of reading it tonight was, for whatever reason, just weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was with Rod because, again, he's usually pretty good. I know sometimes it could be an interesting situation, but it just, the way the ball flew, like the first one, for example, it bounced. They had him way back, and that's because he's that good. And he didn't get all of that one. And that was the one that was a hold, and they re-kicked it and ended up being at the 50. But, I don't know. I don't know what it was, the lights or something. I don't know.
And I don't know if when Rod saw that first punt take that huge bounce that he was like, okay, maybe I can't let it bounce anymore. I don't know. But, again, just to think of the glass half full, SMU made all of these mistakes and still dominated the Florida State Seminoles. So,
they'll always have to clean things up, but it's a good point. How do they take down Louisville? Like Rhett said, I haven't even looked at Louisville yet. Tyler Shook is pretty good. That's all I know. But SMU's got a good defense. They'll have a chance, like we said. All right, final question. This is a perfect one to end with. Frexy, interesting name, but was that pick 6 not the biggest boy football play we've seen in like forever? Just incredible. Will running over and completely emasculating a team.
I mean, we've talked about the whole offseason, SMU transitioning to the Power 4. I think that play alone proved they can match any physicality that any team will put up against them. So, yes, they are ready for big boy football, and they proved it last week and again tonight.
Yep. That was somebody in the comments said Kobe Quake. Sure enough. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I've never seen a sideline like that, so never seen a night like tonight in Ford Stadium, even though last week was cool too. But this is a perfect opportunity for everybody to jump on board with us at ontheponyexpress.com. Seen a lot of people on the boulevard commenting on the polos and things like that. And we appreciate all you guys who are on the Pony Express. For those of you who have been with us for a while, you're reaping the benefits of what is a historic night at Ford Stadium. So, Dean, any last thoughts? You got anything else?
I think you summed it up. Just a historic special night. You got to savor nights like these. And these are the nights that make next week's game even more exciting to look forward to, and what could be a special game in Louisville.
Yeah, excited to get to Louisville. Send us all your recs. We'll be out there covering it for you guys. So, again, another reason why you should subscribe to On the Pony Express. I did one more check, and SMU Louisville hasn't had a game time yet. So, our TV coverage, it is at 11 a.m. Central on ESPN or ESPN2. We'll have all the coverage. Dean might have to phone you in on the virtual one there for the post-game show to keep this going. But for Dean Ralsky, I'm Billy Embody. Subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. We appreciate Mosquito Shield. Check them out. Mosquito Shield, moshield.com. Code PonyUp gets you their best pricing through the end of the season. So thanks for listening, everyone, to this edition of the After Stangs Show live from Shug's Bagels in Mockingbird Plaza. SMU beats up on Florida State 42-16. Catch you guys next time on the After Stangs Show. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at on3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.